Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
How do you put it in drive?
Well, we try to talk them, see their ears turn back.
Yeah.
That means they're listening to me.
Oh, yeah?
Dale, Lou, step.
Wow!
Hello, and welcome to Keepers of the Old Ways. This was a collaboration of homesteaders across the land that came together out at the Pioneer Settlement in Blountstown, Florida. We are a group of all like-minded people whose main interest is to gain the self-sufficient lifestyle that our ancestors had. We want to bring back the way things were, a simpler, more self-sufficient lifestyle. There was blacksmithing, and in the schoolhouse there were no computers. Everything just shows how simple the learning was. You learned just what you needed, and then after that you had to tend to the farms. There was work to be had, chores to be done, but look at how simple. Kids today wouldn't know how to conduct themselves. Speaking of kids today, there were Hidden Oaks Homestead spoke about how to get your kids involved in farming and homesteading. All these log cabins were just set back in time. You take a step back in time and you see how simple things were, but comfortable. You had everything you needed. There was classes like getting started with goats, handcrafted malls, wood and gas and solar, how to survive without any solar, Florida survival gardening classes. There were herbal remedy classes, how to build a food forest, backyard homesteading, medicinal herbs, campfire cooking, Florida survival skills. We each brought a little something to the table, which made this event really interesting. You could go from one class to the next, and hopefully we all gave everyone a little bit of information that they can take back to their farm or their little homestead and just get a little further down the road, maybe increase what they have through our knowledge. And of course, last but not least, here's Randall and our speech on biochar.
And just getting rolling, doing all this stuff. Now, the latest and greatest things that I've went down the rabbit hole on is biochar. And so when Jessica asked me, she goes, "What would you like to speak on?" And I was like, biochar. Not a lot of people know what is going on with biochar. There's a lot of rumors out there that biochar will revolutionize the world. It will sequester carbon out of the atmosphere. You put it in the dirt to never return again. And I've looked at the numbers. You would have to burn every tree on the face of the earth and put it in the dirt in order to sequester all the carbon that is being emitted. So I don't buy off on all that hocus pocus, sequester the carbon stuff. If you really want to sequester the carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere, just stop burning so much petroleum. And I don't see that in it anytime soon. Not that I'm against it anyway. Where's my notes? My notes right here. All right, so biochar, they discovered biochar down in the Amazon forest. They noticed that all the dirt down there was very, very poor dirt, but all of the trees were very healthy, and they were wondering why. Well, they started digging down, and they noticed that they had black earth over thousands of years. All the people that inhabited the Amazon area, which was in upwards of 2 million people a long time ago before the white man came over and settled the Americas and brought disease, which has now killed them off down to, I think, 200,000 people in the entire Amazon now. But whenever you had a large population, you had large populations of people that were gathered in almost like cities. You had 200,000 people in some areas, but you had this poor soil. How were they supporting themselves? And they come to find out that they had this really good dirt in certain areas. And they started exploring around, and it was in clumps. It wasn't the whole entire area, it was in clumps, and they were farming these clumps. And they dug down, and they found out that they were burning trees, making charcoal, putting it in the dirt, and the charcoal is what was feeding the biome life that was in the dirt, growing all these plants. Now, once you create carbon, all these trees, and you put that in the dirt, it's there for thousands of years. If you do biochar in your house and you put that in your garden, it's going to be there for the rest of your life. You'll never have to do it again. It's a one-time fix. So now we have went down the rabbit hole of burning all of our pecan limbs that fall out and wood chips that we've brought in, and we're starting to make biochar. We're going to inoculate the biochar. You have to inoculate it in order to get it to work. If you put just charcoal in the ground, it's not going to work. It's going to have the reverse effect. It's going to suck the nutrients out of your dirt, and your plants aren't going to do anything. Because I brought a little bit of biochar. Now, you could just pass this around and just take a look at what this biochar is. This is just some limbs that I made, and we'll just pass that around so you can all get a look at it. But that was just a limb that you put in here, and you burn that, and all it does is it's taking all the water, all the fibers, and it's off-gassing those and turn them into charcoal. This is the same charcoal that you put in your Weber to cook on. It's just formatted a little bit different, but it's the exact same stuff. You can actually go buy a bag of Royal Oak charcoal and make biochar out of that. It's the same stuff. So it's a sponge-like material. If you look, and I didn't bring my pictures. I had pictures of microscopic biochar. But if you were to look under a microscope at what biochar is, it's sponge-like. You got all these little caverns that are left over after all the gases and waters have been burned off. And so if you look at that under the microscope, with it being sponge-like, you have all these caverns that microbes can go into, fungi can inhabit, water will be pulled into that. And when you get that down in the soil and your roots go into that and you have a good rain, that biochar will soak up that water, it'll hold it there, it'll feed the fungus, it'll feed the microbes, and the trees will get their roots down into that. And so whenever they need moisture, they'll pull moisture out of that char. Even a month after you've not had any rain, there's still moisture that's held up inside that char. Now, biochar, if you have a really good garden and you have a lot of compost, you probably really don't need to do this. If you live in Florida and you have a really sandy soil and it's poor and you're trying to get a garden established and you don't have enough compost to put in the ground, you can put biochar in the ground and it'll act like a humus. It'll condition your soil. So if you take biochar and you put it over just your bare ground, just your bare ground before you do biochar, if you put water on it and after a half an inch of rain hits, it starts to run off, you don't have any compost in the ground, you don't have any organic matter in the ground. But once you put biochar in the ground you can have up to 8 inches of rain before it ever starts flooding off, because all that biochar will soak up that water and it will retain it. 1 gram of biochar, if you were to break that all the way down to do where it was just dust, you would have 32,000 square feet of surface space that's usable to the microbe life of, 1 gram of biochar has 32,000 square foot of surface area that can hold all those biological lives. Now, one of the weird things about biochar, and a lot of people don't know this, and if you go on YouTube, you're not going to get this because not a lot of people speak on it, but biochar, after you burn it, it goes through a reaction. And I'm not talking about a physical reaction. I'm talking about positive ions, negative ions. And a lot of people don't know how plants work. Plants don't absorb organic matter. They grow off the movement of electricity, positive ions, negative ions. Whenever they're moving, that's how plants grab their energy, is the movement of ions. So that's how Miracle-Gro works. That's how Triple 13 works. When you're pouring that on your plant, you're providing a big charge of positive and negative ions that are going to move around, and that plant can grab that and it can immediately use it. And that's why you walk out the next day and your plants are green, is because you're supplying them with all those broken down, all those electrical charges. Now, if you take your organic matter, your compost, you put that in your dirt, now that's not immediately available to your plants. A lot of people know that, right? A lot of people don't understand it, that whenever that compost is added to the garden, it takes several weeks before that plant can start using that. And that's because your microbes and your earthworms have to run all that compost through their gut, and it changes it. And they physically have the ability to move and separate ions from themselves to change the structure. And so whenever those animals poop, they're pooping a totally different product that is now available to plants. Now, biochar does the same type of thing. Whenever you create biochar, you're creating a negative charged structure. So when you put that in your soil and you have heavy metals that are in your soil, and your heavy metals are exchanging ions, it's going to be attracted to the biochar, and that biochar is going to lock down that heavy metal and not let that be available to your plants. Now, it will loosely hold ions. So if the plant is wanting whatever electrical charges that are there, those nutrients, it will take it. So if you have phosphorus, and the positive ions of the phosphorus are attracted to the loosely charged structure of the biochar, it'll hold it there. The plant wants it, so it'll go to that biochar and it'll pull and it'll extract that nutrient and uptake it into the plant. So that's how that works. Not a lot of people know that.
I thought it was just dirt.
But a lot of people also don't understand that chemical fertilize is just the basic simple forms of what a plant uses. It's not a complete fertilizer. You're only getting NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. You're not getting all the other minerals that plant wholly needs to provide the best produce for you to consume that's possible. Like, a lot of people don't know that tomatoes, whenever tomatoes uptake their nutrients, they only need 20 to produce a tomato, 20 nutrients. If you have a fully enriched soil, it will use 50 nutrients. So if you're composting and your compost is a fully enriched compost, it's going to provide all 50 of those nutrients to the plant. And now whenever you take that into your body, you're getting a fully enriched diet. And so, another rabbit hole is when you go to the produce store and all that produce is shipped in from California and it's picked early and it's missing a lot of those nutrients, you now have a nutrient devoid diet.
Yeah.
You think you're eating salads and you're doing your body good by eating these salads, eat your broccoli, eat your lettuces. You're really not getting the full amount. You're doing better than if you went to McDonald's and eat the cheeseburger, but you're not really giving your body what it's really desiring. All right, so that is what is biochar. Yes, sir.
I was going to say something about charges. That goes along with like rainwater versus irrigation.
Yes.
The rainwater is going to have charges.
That's right.
And I noticed that plants don't grow well when they don't get rainwater when they have irrigation.
That's right. If you notice that when you go out and you water your plants, it don't do near as good as whenever the rain does it. When the rain waters your plants, your garden seems to jump overnight. And it's because of the movement of positive and negative ions that are present.
You inoculated biochar?
Yeah, we're going to get down to that. I still got a long way to go. But yeah, you have to charge up your biochar and prepare it, or it's going to suck all the nutrients out of your soil doing what, because it's negatively charged. All right, making biochar. All right, so this is the way I did it. And who's seen my video where I built this? Okay, thanks. Cool. All right. For Alabama Homestead, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I have a video on how to make the T-Lud, top lit up draft biochar making system. And it's really simple. It's just a 55-gallon drum. I've got some air holes knocked in the bottom, and underneath the bottom there's all kinds of air holes. You want good air movement to burn. I took, and you can use a 30-gallon barrel. I got this 15. Some people will use a 5-gallon paint can. And this is what you put your material in that you want to turn into charcoal. And so if you look, I filled this up before I did a burn, and that's all the charcoal I got out of it, out of a full can.
Yeah. He filled it all the way full, and it just left a little bit of charcoal.
100 pounds of feedstock, which is your wood, whether you're going to use wood or you use a manure to put in here to make charcoal, 100 pounds will yield 10 pounds of charcoal. So it's not much. It really reduces what's available.
When he was done, it sounded like glass.
So when you put your feedstock in here and you put the lid on it, you want your lid to be able to off gas and expel all those gases out there. Then you want those gases to reburn. So your lid needs to have some holes in it so that those gases can escape. So when you put your feedstock in there and you put it down, you put that upside down inside your drum on some bricks so the air movement can move under there. And then you fill up around this barrel up over the top, all in here, with wood that you're going to utilize to make your biochar that you're going to burn. It's going to be a waste. Put that over in there, fill it up with sticks. Lid is off. You light it around the top. You put this lid with the smokestack on it, and it starts burning here and moving its way down. It's pulling oxygen from the bottom, but it's burning down. And then once it goes up through here, any gases that start to emit out of here as this is heating up to 900 degrees will off gas through these holes, come out through here and burn up and come out of here. Every time I walk outside to check to see if this thing is lit, it looks like it went out. But if you went, you got this far from it, you'll feel that thing radiating, and you'll notice a little bit of heat wave going, and it is chugging along, but there's absolutely no smoke coming out of it. So you're not like polluting the atmosphere when you're creating biochar. You are putting a little bit more of that carbon back in the air. If you're worried about that, I'm not. I'm worried about growing my garden, not saving the planet. If we were worried about saving the planet, we'd be doing something different, right? All right, so that's how that works. So we let it burn all day, let it cool down all night, and then we go out there and we pull our barrel out, and it's all cooled off. You got two options. As soon as this thing is done, you can pull it out. It's still hot. Throw water on it. And by throwing water on it, all these carbon pieces have emitted all these oils and resins, and they're on the outside. And in order to get all those resins off of there, if you quench it really quick with water, that'll separate those oils. They'll come off of that, and then it all of a sudden start absorbing the water back into the biochar. Biochar, after it cools down, is hydrophobic. So you have to let this thing soak a long time, hours and days, in order to start soaking in that water. It does not want water. All right. It wants to suck in ions, but it doesn't want to soak in water. So now, getting back to charging your biochar. You've got biochar. Now, what do I do with it? You got a whole bunch of different things you can do to charge up biochar. And one of the things that I've recently discovered is C90 minerals. Has anybody ever heard of C90 minerals?
C90?
C-S-E-A, like the ocean, C90. C90 minerals has every mineral that's in the periodic table, except for the gases. That's 50-pound sack. All those feed sacks coming in and out of our car. She goes and gets all of our feed at the farm supply store. She goes and takes care of all that while I'm at work. So she handles those heavy bags. But C90 has, this is just ocean salts, but it came out of Baja region of Mexico, where they have a special sea salt that's not like anywhere else. Because I was just thinking, this is ocean water. I work at NAS Pensacola. Every day I can bring home ocean water, and then I can charge up my biochar with it. And then I started looking a little bit further into it, that there's something special about where this come from. There are vents coming up out of the Earth's mantle over in the Sea of Cortez. And so it has minerals in there that you can't find anywhere else in the ocean. Twice a year they have an anomaly where the moon gets in a certain position and it floods. And so all this seawater comes in inland about 15 miles into the desert of Baja, Mexico. And so whenever it does that, they dam it up and they trap that water. And so after the sun of 120 degrees over there evaporates all the water off, they're left with all these salts. See that? It's just like ocean salt, right? Rock salt. But the special thing about this salt is there's no other salt water in the world that has every element that's on the periodic table except for the gases present in these. There's even gold in here. Gold, titanium, arsenic, everything is in this salt. Believe it or not, plants have to have a certain amount of arsenic. Human body has to have a certain amount of arsenic. It's essential. And so I bought that. And so that's one of the things I'm going to start charging my biochar with, is I'm going to do a compost tea or a compost or worm castings. You can use all those stuff, but I'm going to put just a little bit of these trace minerals in here, maybe just a cup into a 5-gallon barrel. I'll soak my biochar in there, let that charge up, and leave that for a few weeks. What you want to do is you want to charge up that biochar. You want to get microbes to start breeding. You want funguses to start breeding. You want to control the environment. You want to introduce the specific ones. One of the things you need to do is take a cup of your garden soil, dump it into the compost, because whatever microbes are in your garden, you want that already charged up inside your biochar. You don't really want to bring in microbes that aren't present in your area. So you start charging up your biochar with all those bacteria, all those minerals, all those positive, negative ions, gold, copper, all those minerals that are essential that we don't know about, that they don't tell us about. You want all that in your biochar. Once you have that, then you want to put it between your first down to 12 inches of your topsoil, and you put just anywhere from 1 inch to 4 inches of biochar, and you mix that in. So that's the ratio. Basically, if you just take a shovelful and you just lay that shovelful over 1 square foot of garden, that's about how much biochar you need, and then you just turn that in. Now, one of the things I'm going to do this year, and I'm going to document it, is I'm going to take my auger, it's got a 3-foot auger on it, 8-inch blade, and I'm going to drill holes down in my garden, get all that clay, that hard clay that my garden plants aren't using. I'm going to drill that out of there, and then I'm going to put in biochar, compost, and topsoils, and I'm going to put all these minerals in there. I'm going to put that in my garden. I'm going to put a tomato over that. I'm going to do a control, and then I'm going to do one with the biochar and the sea minerals, and I want to see how that works out for me. So I'm excited about that. Really looking forward to how that turns out.
That'll be another video.
One of the other things you can do, fish emulsion is very rich in nutrients. A lot of people will use fish emulsion as a fertilizer. When you go out to your garden, you give them a mason jar cup of fish emulsion, fertilizer, compost, water, down to your plant. So that's another thing that you can use to charge your biochar with. Fish emulsion, compost tea. Let it all sit for a week. Now, one of the other things you can do, homesteads at different periods will have issues with odors in your pens. Your chicken pens, if you've noticed that you have a strong ammonia smell in your chicken pens where manure is building up, and you don't have time to go out there and clean all that up and clean it out, but you want to control the odor and the flies that are getting in there, you can put this biochar right in there with the chickens, let the chickens mix that in, and all of a sudden all your smell will go away because the biochar will absorb all that ammonia. Ammonia is nitrogen. So if you have charged your biochar with a nitrogen-rich nutrient, and then you go put that in your garden, wow, you've really supercharged things. So mix this into your pens, your livestock pens, let it sit there all winter. You know, let it sit there 6 months, and then go put it in your garden and see what kind of results you're going to get. I think you'll be amazed. All right, so if you already have your gardens going and they're established, and you want to run home and you want to set up a T-lead system and start making biochar, but you're already getting all your tomatoes and peppers and stuff in the ground, and things are going, and you don't have time to go back and dig up your garden and replant, you can top dress biochar around your plants. And the rate of 1 teaspoon per hole, so if you're putting seedlings out, 1 teaspoon per hole, and then a teaspoon around the surface of the plant. Now, if your plants are already established, like I said, you can side dress your plants with biochar and maybe mix it into the top inch of the soil just to kind of get it down in there and get it working. Teas. So if you use 1 cup of biochar into 5 gallons of water, you can ladle 2 to 3 cups per plant every 2 weeks. All right. We have any questions?
What depth is the Biochar? 12 inches?
Down to 12 inches is what they recommend. That's the normal root zone for a young vegetable plant. I'm going to put it up to 3 feet because I know tomatoes, they'll bury their roots, and peppers will too. And so I'm going to see what that does for my plants.
So you want your layer inch thick, about so, or a couple inches? Or?
Put 1 to 4 inches thick of biochar on your surface, and then mix that into your top 1 foot. That's the ideal.